Hello there, I'm Alice, a 32-year-old woman, and right now I'm 9 months pregnant. Today, my husband and I are driving to this family's home, just a 30-minute drive from our apartment. We visit them 2 or 3 times a month, and today we're excited because my mother-in-law is baking her famous apple pie. She's a sweet lady who has been through a lot since losing her husband last year but is now eagerly awaiting the birth of her grandchild. However, not everyone is thrilled about our impending arrival. My sister-in-law, Brianna, married 6 years before us and has been struggling with infertility. She started fertility treatments 2 years ago, but there have been no results. The pressure has made her irritable, and my mother-in-law often asks us to visit when Brianna isn't around. To our surprise, Brianna showed up unexpectedly today. Long time no see, Alice. You've put on some weight, haven't you? You're not just lazing around because you're pregnant, right? You look like a seal all round and ready to roll down a hill, she sneered. I was taken aback by her harsh words. Hey, Brianna, how can you say something like that? She's 9 months pregnant. Of course her belly is big. You're going to make enemies with pregnant women all over the world talking like that. My husband quickly defended me. Oh please, I'm just thinking about Alice. It's tough if a pregnant woman gets too heavy. I just want Alice to be aware of her responsibilities as a mother, Brianna retorted. Thank you, sister-in-law. Yes, you're right, I should be more careful, I responded, choosing non-confrontational words. But she wasn't done. Just because you're pregnant doesn't mean you can be lazy. Start cleaning this house right now. You're lacking exercise. You can at least do that much, she said, handing me a broom and dustpan. Before I could respond, my mother-in-law and husband scolded Brianna for her behavior, and she supped off to an upstairs room. I'm sorry, Alice. She just showed up out of nowhere, my mother-in-law apologized. It's fine, I reassured her. I'm sorry too, Alice. That's just how my sister is, my husband added. Despite the incident, we enjoyed a pleasant time together, savoring the apple pie and tea. We called out to Brianna, but she didn't respond. We were worried but continued our day. A few days later, a shocking incident occurred. I went to my in-laws' house alone to speak with my mother-in-law. As I wondered why the front door was unlocked, I found Brianna in the living room. Sister-in-law, what brings you here? I heard you had to work today, I said. I wasn't in the mood, so I took the day off. I was surprised to see you here. You disrupted my cleaning last time. Now get back to work, she demanded, thrusting the broom and dustpan at me. I decided to clean to avoid trouble, but that day I was feeling discomfort from early morning. During the cleaning, I began to feel pain in my stomach. Just as I thought of taking a short break, Brianna kicked my stomach, causing my water to break. The pain escalated, and I fell to the ground. Ah, it hurts. Somebody please help, I cried out. I managed to dial my mother-in-law before losing consciousness. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed with an IV in my arm and my body wrapped in an electric blanket. Where am I? What about my baby? I tried to sit up, but the pain in my abdomen stopped me. My stomach, which was supposed to be large, had shrunk, and I was shocked. I pressed the nurse call button, and when the nurse came, I asked what had happened. Apparently, my water had broken, and I had to give birth via emergency cesarean. The baby was small and in an incubator. The doctor assured us that the baby, though small and in an incubator, was in good health. My mother-in-law and husband, who had rushed in, were informed, and their faces were red with anger. I decided to visit the baby once I felt better and tried to rest to recover quickly. However, the next day, an unbelievable pair showed up in my room, my sister-in-law and her husband. They walked in without knocking. I frowned at their impudence. They suggested, "We'll pay you, let's settle this." A chill ran down my spine. When I didn't agree, they lashed out with every offensive word they could think of, aimed at my tired face. Thinking of what my daughter had endured because of these people, something inside me snapped. A settlement? Are you kidding me? I'll ruin your life, I retorted. The two of them were enraged by my words and continued shouting. What are you saying? We're offering a solution with money here. Aren't you thankful, Alice? Didn't your parents teach you to obey your elders? We're telling you to settle. Just agree quietly. My brother-in-law joined in. As we argued, forgetting it was a hospital room, the doors suddenly swung open. I've heard everything. I'm sorry, but I have absolutely no intention of settling, my husband declared, his deep voice imposing. They didn't expect my husband to show up, and the two who had been so confident until now were completely taken aback. Ah, long time no see, Finn. It's a coincidence to meet you here, my brother-in-law stammered, his face tense. It truly is a coincidence. I didn't expect to meet you here and never imagined I'd hear such words from you too. I would appreciate an explanation. We were all in the room when you said it, so there's no room for any excuses, my husband replied sternly. Hey, don't be so angry, Finn. It's not like we had ill intentions. We just feel bad for what we did to Alice. That's why we're offering money, hoping to settle this out of court, my sister-in-law explained with a trembling voice. But my husband's fury didn't subside. The one who decides whether this will be a settlement or not is Alice, not you. Besides, do you think this is a situation that can be solved with money? Alice had an emergency C-section. The baby is in an incubator. You endangered both their lives. Do you even understand that? My husband exploded, letting his emotions get the best of him. I agree with my husband. No amount of money can make this right. You will face the consequences of your actions, I added, unable to forgive them just because they were throwing money at us. It seemed like my sister-in-law assumed that throwing money at us would make us forgive them, but this situation was not that simple. Thankfully, both my daughter and I, although she was in an incubator, were fine. But had there been any mistake, we might not be here now, and my sister-in-law seemed entirely oblivious to this. I suspected my brother-in-law felt the same way. Thinking about this, I realized I couldn't forgive them or consider a settlement lightly. At my words, my sister-in-law flared up and raised her voice. What do you mean this is all because of her? She knew I couldn't get pregnant, and yet she kept rubbing her belly in front of me. Was that a jab at me? I was furious. That's why I did what I did, to make sure she never does anything like that again, she continued. Now I knew why she had kicked me. But there was something that didn't make sense. I hadn't met Brianna often since I got pregnant, and every time she saw me, she would go into her room and not come out. How did she see me rubbing my belly? That part was a mystery, but no matter what she said, it wouldn't erase what she had done. Neither my husband nor I had any intention of forgiving her. I understand that you're struggling, but that doesn't justify doing something like this to Alice. No matter the reason, endangering a life is never acceptable, my husband explained, stating the obvious. But they each looked elsewhere, not even trying to listen. It seemed like they wanted to get this over with as soon as possible. Seeing their lack of remorse, I felt my condition worsen. Are we done here? I just had surgery and I'm not feeling well. If you continue to cause a ruckus in this room, I'll call the police. Arguing wasn't going to resolve anything, and talking to them was too hard for me as I was still recovering. After my husband kicked them out, I sighed heavily. We had enough evidence because my husband had recorded their conversation. My mother-in-law was also unable to contain her anger because of what her daughter had done, putting my life and that of her grandchild in danger. We decided to press charges against my sister-in-law. We filed a complaint with the police and my sister-in-law was taken to the station. Through a lawyer, we started negotiations, but my sister-in-law insisted, I've done nothing wrong. This woman has been flaunting her pregnancy in front of me, causing me emotional distress when I'm struggling with infertility. She's not innocent either, so she should be open to a settlement. At first, she had been eager to pay any amount of money, but then she began to claim her innocence, insisting we pretend none of this happened because we were both at fault. When she first saw my husband in the hospital, she was visibly intimidated, but now determined to avoid paying, she put up a stubborn fight. However, she had no idea our conversation in the hospital room had been recorded. As soon as the evidence was presented, their faces turned ashen. Even with such clear evidence, you still claim you're innocent. I'm afraid that won't fly, I said. After enduring so much insult and refusing to agree to a settlement, my sister-in-law, in anger, flung the coffee that was before her at us. Thankfully, the coffee was cold, so we didn't get burned. Their outrageous behavior and language in the office resulted in additional charges, forcing them to increase the compensation amount. Trying to calm his infuriated wife, my brother-in-law left the office. With the assault charges against me in the current incident, the amount we demanded for my sister-in-law had become substantial. When we told my mother-in-law what had happened, she looked deeply remorseful, saying, I'm so sorry for what my daughter has done. There's no need for you to agree to a settlement. I'll make sure she faces the consequences, she apologized tearfully. I couldn't help but think, how could a grown-up cause so much distress to their own parents? I felt incredibly sorry for my mother-in-law. In the end, my sister-in-law was asked to pay a hefty compensation. Shocked by the amount, she called me repeatedly, insisting that we reduce it because we were both at fault. I couldn't comprehend how she could make such an argument after all she had done. No matter how many times you call, the answer remains the same. We have no intention of reducing the amount nor agreeing to a settlement. Honestly, your calls are becoming a nuisance. Please stop, I snapped at her. This caused her to lose her temper, and unbelievably, she barged into my apartment. Hey, you're there, right? I know you're in there. Get out here now, coward, she shouted. I was resting on the sofa due to the pain from my surgery when she started pounding on the door, shouting incomprehensible insults. Hey, what on earth are you doing? Is everything okay with you? Your shouting is disturbing everyone else. Please stop, I yelled back while she continued to bang on the door. There were elderly people and families with babies in the apartment, and despite it being past 8 p.m., she was causing such a ruckus. I wondered if she ever considered that people might be sleeping. My husband was still at work and hadn't returned home since I got discharged from the hospital. I've been visiting my daughter every day, feeling unwell, and dealing with her unannounced visit and commotion was pushing me to my wits' end. No matter how many times you come here, my mind won't change. Please don't come here anymore, I said, fighting back despite feeling unwell and pale. My sister-in-law was desperate for a settlement, and my concerns seemed irrelevant to her. I didn't do this because I wanted to, you know. It's because of your intrusions that things have come to this. It's presumptuous of you to get pregnant before me. Shouldn't you have been more considerate and waited to get pregnant after us? It seemed like she saw pregnancy as some sort of competition. I don't think pregnancy is a competition or that it's more honorable to get pregnant first. But for my sister-in-law, who has struggled with infertility for many years, it seemed like she viewed pregnancy in that way. Everyone has different values, but that's no excuse to hurt others. I understand you're upset about not being able to have children, but that's no reason to hurt others. So, I cannot forgive you. You put my daughter in danger, and for that, you will be held responsible, I stated firmly. Above everything else, the fact that she had hurt my daughter was unforgivable. Just then, the sound of sirens could be heard from outside. It seemed that someone in the apartment had reported the disturbance. When you're banging on someone's door and yelling at this hour, it's inevitable that the police would be called. What do you mean the police are here? Open the door. You have to hide me, she pleaded. Despite my sister-in-law's pleas, I had no intention of hiding her. The police arrived at the apartment and began questioning her. I also explained the situation from my perspective. Just at that moment, my husband came back to the apartment, and I filled him in on what had happened. Considering what had happened before, my husband told the police everything, and they took my sister-in-law away in their car. That night, my brother-in-law called to tell me that he was divorcing my sister-in-law and asked me not to involve him in this issue, a rather self-serving request. Apparently, one of my husband's colleagues had been at the hospital where I was admitted and overheard my brother-in-law's conversation. When he got to work, the gossip spread among the female employees, and my brother-in-law was looked down upon. The situation worsened, and somehow the story reached the HR department. My brother-in-law, realizing he couldn't talk his way out of it, confessed everything. He was then told that someone like him couldn't stay in the company and was going to be transferred to a regional office. He said, I can't deal with her issues anymore. If any more problems arise, I'll be fired, so please leave me out of it. With that, he hung up and I haven't heard from him since. Afterward, we received substantial compensation from my sister-in-law, and to ensure she would never come near us again, we changed our phone numbers and moved away. Even if she ran out of money and needed help, she wouldn't know where to find us. A few months later, my daughter was discharged from the hospital. She didn't have any lingering effects and was growing up healthy. Rumor has it that my sister-in-law was in substantial debt. At first, she moved from friend to friend, but she was never contributing to living expenses and stayed far too long, so they kicked her out. With no place to live and no money, she was working part-time to pay off her debt.